In this episode,
the sky's the limit.
The Fantasy Football Show.
Hello listeners and welcome to episode 1 of Planet Sky. My name's Suj. We just got to give it a name, mate. Planet Sky. What's your name? Tell them.
We just didn't even discuss it.
Nah. I'm the marketing side.
All right,
Sky Fantasy Football. Tell them who you are, James.
No,
James.
I'm James, and I.
Exactly. For regular listeners, you'll know we talk FPL week in, week out. This season, we are going to start dabbling in Sky Fantasy Football. And let's be honest, James, why are we doing it?
Because it's £50,000 to be won.
50 grand. 50 big ones. And if either one of us win it, we're going to share it. That's what we agreed.
That's not happening, mate, because you definitely ain't winning it because you need a lot of planning for this.
Yeah,
if
don't
you
worry.
think I'm giving you £25,000, that's not happening.
Don't worry, it'll be fine. We'll figure it out. Let's get there first, shall we? Because
All right,
those
cool.
are nice problems to have. The Sky game opens in exactly a week, exactly the same as the Premier League game. So today's episode 1, we're a week out. We're still tinkering with drafts, but we thought we'd run down a few of the differences between FPL and the Sky game to give listeners an idea of things that they need to be aware of. It's definitely worth them registering a team. I mean, 50 big ones. It's worth it. Plus, there's a lot of... I think it can help your FPL thinking in certain ways as well.
Yeah, I mean, because you probably need a bit more planning for this, is important to say. What we're going to do is every Friday, we're going to kind of do a special on the Sky game. We was very conscious of not including it in the podcast because you can only play the game if you're based in the UK and you've got a Sky account, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't want to bore the listeners from around the world on that. So we thought we'd have a regular kind of feature focus on it every Friday.
Correct. So this week we're going to run down the differences in the two games and a few of the rule differences that we think are going to have an impact on the game. And then next week, before the game actually opens, because of Friday deadline, we'll be running through our initial drafts. So first and foremost, you only have to pick 11 players. You don't have to pick 15 players, which in a way makes it a bit easier because you don't have to worry about saving any budget for your bench. But I don't think it makes it that much easier because it's still 100 million 11 players, 100 million 15 players. It's still a case of how do you balance and spread your budget.
Yeah, and the pricing is a lot higher, generally speaking. Like, you know, you're holding midfielders which hold some value in this game. The good ones are priced at like 9 million or so.
Yeah,
so
quite
if you
a bit
think
more.
you're just going to get 100 million, I can all have Salah, Sterling, Kane, etc.
You
can't.
cannot. They do something in that you talked about. I think when we did the getting to know you with the three amigos about having pricing at all different levels rather than every price finishing at 0.5 or 0. They have prices all over the place as well.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
And also, what's important to say on that is valuations will not change
Throughout the entire season.
So whatever the value of someone is now, that is their value for the season. It will not change.
I'm not a fan of that so much. I think
Well, it's hard for me to say having not played the game before, but I would lead to think if there's something that's obvious from a value perspective where someone's hammering it as a good price, he's going to end up in everybody's team. And essentially then you're competing over a number of ex-players. I mean, we'll talk about players a bit more probably next week, but say Gilbert at Villa is a 4.5 million defender. He's
in FPL.
No, in
and Sky as well.
Yeah. I think it's 4.5 in Sky. That's dirt cheap.
That's ridiculous because I was looking through midfielders at 5 million and there's nothing.
No. And there's nothing that's sort of like sub 6 million defenders and here that's worth anything. This fella's 4.5. We think he will probably start for Villa at right back. Now, if he gets the green light, he's going to start. He's going to be in everyone's team. And then effectively it becomes a 10-player game.
Yep. That's the challenge. Now, the other thing with the Sky game that's different is you can have as many players from a team as you want. So you could literally fill your team with City. Now, you couldn't because you couldn't afford them, but there's no restriction on 3 players from any one team.
That's correct, although it's still very difficult to fit in like for Liverpool and stuff like that.
Yeah, of course.
It's tough work.
And I don't think you would want to in the Sky game. So when you're setting your team up, a few of the quick headlines. Yeah, 100 million, 11 players, no bench, no restrictions on number of players from any individual team. Pricing is very arbitrary and spread out, but generally a lot higher than it is in FPL. The thing with the picking 3 players from any one team is that you are allowed to, the captaincy is very different, and because of the way the captaincy works, you end up wanting a spread of players from different teams. So in Sky, you pick a captain for every match day. So Sky differentiates a game week being Friday to Thursday, but within a game week, every day that there's a match is a match day. So you have a game week deadline and you have a match day deadline as well. And you have a captain for every single match day. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. If there's 4 games, 4 captains. And at that point, you want to spread your eggs across more teams because you can then captain a player every match.
So, for example, at the moment, I've got mine set up with probably Alexander-Arnold as my Friday captain, Harry Kane as my Saturday, and Aubameyang as my Sunday captain.
Yeah, so 3 captains in 3 days can make a massive difference if you get that right.
And you can also make transfers in between
in a game week.
weeks. Yeah. So, for example, if you wanted to start with Harry Kane, in fact, we can go back one more than that. You could start with Salah, who's a striker, as is Sterling, Mane. A lot of those guys are all forwards in this game. Jota is a midfielder, interestingly. You could start with Salah on the Friday.
Correct.
Transfer on the Saturday morning to Kane, captain him. Transfer to Aubameyang on the Sunday morning. And then you could have Aubameyang for 3 games, for example, while Kane plays away to Man City. And then on the Sunday of game week 3, you could go back to Kane, for example.
Correct.
And that's what a lot of the heavy hit. Well, I don't really know so much because I'm not in the know of their strategy. Like, genuinely, we are starting this from fresh, and we're going to start this at quite a basic level to start with. My instinct as a starting strategy, as I've said to you off air, is I've tried to pick a team that will get me through the first 4 game weeks, which is when the first fixed overhaul is, which is essentially it's the same as our wild card. Mm-hmm. It has to be then. That's when it's booked in. Now, things will come up like injuries, etc. I will no doubt probably have to make a change. Yep. But I've tried to balance captaincies all the way through, all the days. I'm covered all the way through.
So let's talk about the transfers and the overhaul, and then we can touch on the differences in the point scoring system as well. So transfers, unlike FPL, which is 1 a week, which is 38 over the course of a season, but not really because you don't count your 2 wildcard weeks and your free hit week, really. So really 35 transfers. Sky Fantasy Football is 40 transfers that can be used whenever you want throughout the season. There is a limit of 5 per week. So you can't do more than 5 in a game week, but 40 over the course of the season. So you could do 5, 5, 5, 5 in the first 8 game weeks, and then you're not allowed to make a transfer for the rest of the season.
5 is the maximum you can make in any week.
game week, correct. So you have to be very clever about when you use your transfers. You want to try and obviously hold some back because you never know when an injury is going to hit you, especially if it's one of your premium assets. But at the same time, you want to be able to move within a game week to maximise the captaincy opportunity. So 40 transfers requires some serious planning. But the flip side is, and the flip side is the overhaul, right? Which you talked about, which is the wild card, which is fixed.
Yeah.
Game week. I was expecting more of an
ultimate. It's fixed after game week 4
and 5, and 24 and 25, I think, is the second one.
Be careful with that because it's a good point. You mentioned the game week there. Now, oddly, I don't know why Sky do this, but so game week 5 in FPL is game week 6 in Sky. Essentially, it runs like a calendar. Yep. So Sky's game week 5 is the international break.
So nothing going on in that week.
Correct. So FPL's game week 5 is Sky's game week 6. You need to be cautious of that. So the second overhaul is actually scheduled to be the last week of January.
Yep.
So kind of very similar. It will be similar in weeks, like kind of the 4th game week of the second half of the season, if you want.
Correct.
So roundabouts game week 23 or something.
Yeah. So that's the kind of differences within the transfers. No chips to mention, nothing to talk about in terms of chips. They don't have anything like that within the Sky game.
Just on the transfers, I mean, say, you're restricted to 40 transfers. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, you're restricted. It doesn't feel that bad to me.
No, if you look through your FPL history,
It's more than one a week.
Yeah. If you
You
look,
take out the 2 overhauls
Yeah.
and your starting squad as well.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's 35 weeks of making transfers.
Yes.
You've got 40.
Yeah, if you look at your FPL game week history, game year history, let's say, it does tell you how many transfers you have made in a season. Most people will be between 35 and 40. And the more conservative managers will be even lower, 32, 33 transfers. So I'm with you. I don't think that it's very restrictive. And if you set your squad up well with a balance of players that can cover you across a number of game weeks, then it's not too bad at all. So it is going to be interesting. Point scoring. Now, point scoring on the whole is very similar to FPL, bar a couple of very interesting tweaks. The first being clean sheets. Goalkeepers get more points for clean sheets than defenders, and defenders get more points for clean sheets in Sky than they do in Fantasy Premier League, right? So Sky is 5 points for a clean sheet for defenders, 7 points for a clean sheet for goalkeepers. So the likes of Alisson and Edison were considerably higher point scorers last year in Sky than the other goalkeepers. You're talking 50 or 60 points ahead of Pickford and those guys.
Yeah, I mean, they get 5 points for a penalty save as well. You get a goalkeeper clean sheet and a penalty save. Potential really... man of the match, which you get 3 points for. That's according to... I was under the belief that it was whoever was commentating on the game would announce that, but I did a bit of digging. It's actually whoever's on SkySports.com's website.
Okay.
As a named man of the match is who's awarded that. So goalkeeper clean sheet, penalty save. I mean, you could be onto an astonishing number there if you hit all of that.
Correct.
They also score more for scoring a goal as well. 7 points if you're a defender and score a goal.
Yep. In FPL, it's 4 for strikers, 5 for defenders and midfielders. Here, it's 5 for strikers, 6 for midfielders, and 7 for defenders.
That's correct.
Assists are the same though. 3 points throughout.
Yes.
3 points throughout. The interesting thing is the bonus point system within Sky is less arbitrary. Is the way I would describe it, and more players can score BP. Like, it's not restricted to the top 3 players in the match based on the Opta stats. It's anybody that hits certain criteria can score BPS.
Correct.
So passes completed, tackles made, shots on target, all come into play that you can score 2 or 3 BPS.
So there's 1 or 2 tiers. So tier 1, goalkeepers get plus 2 points for making 3 saves.
Yeah.
3 tackles won, any players, 2 points. 60 completed passes, all players, 2 points. 2 shots on target, all players, 2 points.
And can I just say on that 2 points, it doesn't seem like you have to do much to pick up the first 2. Like 3 successful tackles.
Well, this is why I say, for example, in this game, like, you can captain defenders.
Yes.
Like, seriously. Say, like, people like Van Dijk and Laporte. Van Dijk was the top scorer in this game last year.
Yes.
By a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is a number of clean tackles, passes made at the back. You think of City knocking the ball about at the back.
Yeah.
They're hitting the tiers quite a lot, right?
Yes.
That also is in tier 2, so it's 3 points if they make 5 saves. 3 points for 4 tackles won, 3 points for 70 plus passes, 3 points for 3 plus shots on target.
Yes, it almost when I looked at that, I actually had my eyes on some players that might not be as interested, even like Declan Rice, to be honest, because he just knocks it about sideways all day long. So I could easily see him knocking 60 plus passes per game and picking up BPS if he's cheap enough.
The guys in the midfield areas who I think like Jorginho is quite highly priced.
Yes.
Like the amount of passes he made at Chelsea last year, but then they might play to a different style this year. So he might not have those sort of numbers again. But people like, Declan Rice and Didi, people in that sort of area. Idrissa Gueye would have been one people would have looked at if he hadn't left.
Yeah. But the likes of even the City holding midfielders for Fernandinho and what have you, they just keep knocking it around. Could be.
Rodri at City, if he's going to play regularly, will hit those pass numbers a lot.
Very much so. So that's the difference in the points kind of scoring system that you have, and obviously captain gets double points. Straightforward and simple as that. There aren't any other major changes. What are your thoughts going into? What are your strategies going into the Sky game? So initially for me, it's like first 4 game weeks, map out the game weeks and the match days. So you know the best fixture for each day to figure out who you want captaincy coverage over those 4 game weeks.
Yeah, the absolute key with this game, and this is why quite a few people had recommended it to us, was like planning. We think of the stuff we did on chips for FPL and stuff like
Correct.
that. People were saying, you're hot on the planning, you really should play this game. So knowing the TV fixtures is absolutely critical. And obviously not just the TV fixtures. For example, Wolves are playing on Sundays for the first 4 game weeks, or they've got a Monday night game, I think, in game week 2. But then, so you want a little bit of coverage. So, for example, if you take Wolves and Man United playing on the Monday night in game week 2, you probably want some coverage in there, so you've got a captain for that night. Whether it be a Jota or a Jimenez or a United player, you'll probably
Pogba.
And those are the sort of things
last year.
you might not have. Was he?
Pogba.
Oh, was he really? Wow.
I'm pretty sure.
You know why, didn't you?
Penalties?
No, because Kevin De Bruyne was missing most of the
Yeah,
season.
true. Kevin De Bruyne's the highest, most expensive midfielder in the game.
Yes, in spite of basically no season last year.
Yeah,
tells you the damage he did the year before, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the sort of quirks where you want some coverage. The other obvious thing is kind of like I said, that sort of Kane or Aubameyang hokey cokey, where people will seriously consider that. My thoughts are not to make planned transfers in the first 4 game weeks, because I need to learn the game a bit.
Yeah.
So the less mistakes I make early on, the more I just sit there and kind of assess it, the better I'll be. One of the tips I've heard from the guys who went on Tom and Nick's pod when they did a little bit of a Sky special was like, don't worry about your rank early on, because a lot of people are playing this game and get excited. It's a bit like the FPL spunk the chips early.
Yeah.
We'll use all their transfers early, and you're like, oh, how are you that far ahead? Oh, it's game week 6, you've made 25 transfers. You're going to get fucked later on, right?
Yeah.
So don't worry about that too much. It could be slow and steady wins the race a little bit. Interestingly, listening to the guys on that pod, they're like, yeah, top 100 finish is good.
Wow. Well, let's wait and see what happens.
Not top 100,000 or top 10,000. No. Top 100.
Paul Pogba, just to clarify, highest midfield point scorer last season, 223 points. You mentioned Van Dijk was the highest point scorer. He was 299 points, nearly 300. So he was 60 points ahead of Pogba. Van Dijk is $500,000 cheaper than Pogba. But Pogba was 33 points ahead of the second highest point scorer in the game, who was Gylfi Sigurdsson. And I suppose from that point of view, Salah, Sterling and Mane and Co are all strikers in this game. Yes. So that's a little bit different. But Pogba was only 30 points behind Salah, and he scored as many points as Raheem Sterling. So it does go to show that the point scoring in this is very, very different.
I think next week we'll look at sort of opening drafts and strategy in a bit more detail.
Exactly. I really think that in this game, like, actual football is almost as important. Whereas in the FPL game, like, being a good player doesn't translate to FPL points very regularly. I think in Sky it does, because of the way the BPS system is. And that's why I prefer it. We talk more about football than we do about bloody FPL.
Yeah,
sometimes.
There are things that will still annoy in this game. So, for example, odd man and match choices will maybe make you go, what?
I can see that, but I can stomach that.
Yeah, I agree.
It's only 3 points.
It does feel like a more levelled out platform.
Yeah, for sure. That's it really for today. This is the start of our daily YouTube content that we're going to start pumping out with the help of Manchild, who's literally walks in the room. Are you playing Sky Fantasy Football this year?
Oh, God.
Is it easier than regular FPL?
Bro, there's £50,000 prize on the line.
This is hard. This is harder.
I'll help you this year with Sky Fantasy Football if you need. So that's it. We'll be back next week with round 2 of our Sky show, where we'll have our drafts ready. I've tinkered a little. I've got a few players in my team at the moment, but we need this final week of finalising stuff to get into the game.
Any questions, let us know. Just before we pass on, we have got a mini league going. See if I can find the code.
I'm not in it yet. I need to put myself.
You're not in it?
No, I need to enter.
Brilliant.
I don't really read your tweets, mate.
The pin for our Planet FPL podcast mini league in Sky is 8417855.
8417855.
Yeah, did you get that?
I did, but just chuck it in the snow notes. Chuck it in the show notes.
And for the FPL players, ACHZ34.
Yes, all of that's available on Twitter. Whack it in the Twitter bio. But thanks for watching our first episode of the Sky Show. And we'll be back next week with our drafts ready to get into the game.
Have a good weekend.
Ciao for now.
The Fantasy Football Show.